Choosing the wrong kind of flooring can cost you thousands, and most folks don't even know that they've made a mistake or that they bought the wrong kind of flooring until it's too late. So today in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down the differences between hybrid, laminate, and vinyl plank flooring so that you can see the differences between these three categories and pick the one that's right for your home. So if you're building, renovating, or just sick of your old floor, you're going to have heard a lot of different conflicting information about these three product categories. So in this video today, I'm going to break down the real differences between these floors, their pros and their cons, and how they may affect your home, your lifestyle, and your budget. So if you found this video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe to help us make more great videos like this to help you out in the future. Let's start with vinyl plank flooring. So vinyl plank flooring is a synthetic product. It was initially designed to be used commercially. It's made up of different layers. In fact, if you walk into a shopping center or a supermarket and you look down and it looks like tile or timber, but it's not tile or timber, the chances are you're walking on a vinyl plank floor. So it's quite a durable flooring type. So let's talk about the pros and cons of vinyl plank flooring. So vinyl plank flooring, the pros, it was designed as a commercial product, so it's very durable. It's designed to be lived on. It's 100% waterproof, meaning you can put it in kitchens. In most places, you can put it in wet areas. You can check from state to state. In most states, you can put it in a wet area. It has, like every other product, a range category, a price range category from, low to high with every product. The lower vinyl plank flooring is probably lower than any other category. The high point, though, is not as high as other categories. So it does make it a bit more budget friendly. It does need to be installed being glued down, but if you use a hard set vinyl adhesive on the floor, what that means is you won't get gapping on the floor, and the floor pretty much then is a permanent option. It's great for families with kids, very easy to clean, so you can sweep, you can mop, and then just forget about it. The cons of vinyl plank flooring. So you don't want to leave heavy furniture on it for too long because it is made of different layers of vinyl and fiberglass. It will leave an impression over time if you leave heavy furniture with small feet on it. The fact that you're gluing the floor down means if you ever want to change your mind and you want to change to another flooring type, you have to rip the vinyl plank up and then you have to get a floor preparation expert to come in and grind that adhesive off before you can glue anything else to the subfloor. So changing it makes it quite costly compared to hybrid and laminate, because they're a floated product. Vinyl plank is a softer product, but because it's gluing to the concrete without an underlay underneath it, it feels harder than hybrid and laminate do. Even though hybrid and laminate are a harder product, they have an underlay layer between them and your subfloor, which makes it feel more comfortable underfoot. So sometimes vinyl plank can feel a bit hard, which is counterintuitive. And one last thing about vinyl plank too is that laminate and hybrid have a different manufacturing process. And when vinyl hit the market, because it just sold so rapidly, it was quite lazy in its development. So vinyl plank on the surface tends not to look as realistic as, say, most laminate and hybrid floors do, which we'll get into in hybrid and laminate. So the next category we're going to talk about is laminate flooring. Now, laminate flooring has been around for a long time and has attracted some bad press in the past. But laminate, of all the flooring categories that are not timber, does the best job of replicating timber. It's older than the other categories, meaning it's had more development, and for a while there it almost disappeared from the market due to some issues we'll tackle later, but they've been resolved and the product has come back with abandon. So like all categories, laminate has a high and a low point. It has quite a low point, but it can also have a very high point. So the best laminates are probably going to be among the most expensive of your hard flooring types of the three categories that we're talking about. The laminate will, in most cases, replicate timber better than any other product. The development that's gone into the product, to the surface detail, to the picture films, is better than every other category. Part of the reason too is with laminate, you're printing onto paper. With hybrid and vinyl, you're printing onto vinyl. That paper later, laminate, is resin impregnated, so it becomes very hard and waterproof, the picture film, but the color transfer on it is better than it is on the other two categories. And then the surface detail with what we call Embossed-in-Register technology makes it look, in most cases, a lot like timber. Now that obviously is going to depend on your price point. So if you're buying a cheap laminate, it's going to look as synthetic as vinyl. If you're buying an expensive laminate, in some cases, you're going to have a hard time picking it from timber. Laminate is the most hardest, most scratch and stain resistant flooring category on the market. So where other categories will be quite easy to scratch under certain circumstances, laminate will hold up to that. In my own home, I have a nice waterproof laminator. We drag furniture across it without having to worry. In the past, when I've had other flooring types, I've had to be careful lifting them. So it does make it a very, very good floor to live on. You can just live on it. It installs on an underlay, so it actually makes it feel softer underfoot than what a vinyl plank is. So everything seems really good about laminate. However, there's a couple of things to consider. Previously, and still with cheap laminate flooring, you have an issue with water absorption into the core of the product. So the bad press laminates attracted in the past has been due to moisture ingress. And that is typically not in spilling on the floor, but water coming up through your slab or high humidity. And that has caused the product to fail. Today, laminate floors are much, much different. The cores are far more water resistant to the point of, many suppliers giving them waterproof warranties now. You still have to protect the floor from behind, but you always have had to do that anyway. So the other probably one thing that is the biggest deal breaker for people with laminate is the sound off the floor. And this comes entirely down to how you perceive sound. Like I said, I have it in my own home. Not a bother. Other people hear the sound of you walking on laminate, and for them, they can't handle it. So it is a very personal thing. It's not right or wrong. It just is. So of the three flooring categories we've been discussing, the third one is hybrid. Now, hybrid is the newest player on the market. Now, every flooring category in the past has had a rise, it's had a fall, and then it's evened out. Now, hybrid is in that period where it's had its rise and is having its fall. But every time a product category has a fall, it's generally not to do with the product itself. It's generally to do with how the market has approached that product. So hybrid came along as a waterproof option because vinyl was having some issues with its installation in different climates. And hybrid came along as a way that you can install it in the same way as a laminate. So the product clicks together the same as a laminate does. It has the underlay built in. It's 100% waterproof, but it didn't have to glue down like a vinyl plank did. Now, it shares, the reason it's called hybrid is the picture film and the wear layer on the product are exactly the same as what they are on a vinyl plank floor. In fact, some suppliers use the same picture films for their vinyl and for their hybrid floors and exactly the same wear layer on the two products because they're interchangeable. But the way that it installs is like a laminate floor, so hence the term hybrid. It's made with a waterproof core with those vinyl plank elements on top. So hybrid floor is kind of the great all-rounder. It's experiencing some negative press now, not because of the product, but because of our installation practices. So hybrid will do pretty much every job well. It floats like a laminate floor, so it means if you ever want to replace the floor, you don't have to worry about pulling up adhesive. It's more durable and more scratch resistant than vinyl, even though it carries the same picture film and wear layer, because it's rigid and things can't get down into it deep enough to scratch it, whereas that little bit of movement in the vinyl allows things to get down to scratch it. Additionally, hybrid flooring is probably the second most realistic looking of the product categories because it uses embossed-in-register technology in some products, the same as a lot of laminate floors do, meaning that the grain designs on your picture film marry exactly the indentations on the surface of the floor. So with vinyl plank, it's mostly like this. With hybrid and laminated, well, in laminate, it's mostly like this. Hybrid, there are hybrid products that have that embossed-in-register technology that is not as common in vinyl plank. So you can get hybrid floors that are more realistic looking. They're very heavy, so they sit on the floor quite heavily. They're quite quiet compared to a laminate, but not as quiet as a vinyl plank. They are softer underfoot than a vinyl plank floor is. The cons of hybrid flooring come down to a phenomenon known as silica hydrolysis, which we've done a blog on. It's a waterproof product, but some hybrids have had issue with chemicals coming up through the water in a slab that's caused joins to break down. So this is not a water issue, it's a chemical issue that's affected the back of the product. So a lot of suppliers, to get around you having to have that issue with your floor, insist on putting a builder's plastic down first before you put your hybrid floor down. And that solves that problem for you. The other thing can be if it's installed incorrectly, the joins are more brittle than that on a laminate flooring. And sometimes you can fracture a join in installation and then not realize until that join pops later in life. So it does require a bit more care in installation than a laminate does, but it is the true all-rounder and it does pretty much everything well. How do you choose the one that's right for you? So let's rank them in 5 areas, right? So the first one we're going to talk about is realism. So easily the winner there is laminate. Even mid-range laminates are a lot better looking than mid-range hybrids and vinyl plank floors. So laminate wins there. Hybrid comes in second place because there's a lot more embossed-in-register hybrids available. And then third place is vinyl plank. The next one is going to be the all-rounder category. So hybrid will win this one. Hybrid does everything well. Laminate is better in some areas. Vinyl plank is better in some areas. But across the board, hybrid's a great all-rounder. So with pets and kids, I'm going to give this one again to laminate. Laminate, being the hardest, most scratch, stain and burn resistant surface, is going to look better in 10 years time than a vinyl plank or a hybrid floor will. With water, laminate flooring now has caught up to the point where you might as well call it waterproof in a lot of cases. So laminate's going to win that category with pets and kids. Second place, it's going to be pretty much a tie between vinyl plank and hybrid, maybe hybrid just edging the vinyl plank out. Now we're going to talk about wet areas. In this one, vinyl plank is the clear winner. Because vinyl plank can be installed far more easily in a wet area, you don't necessarily have to deal with runoff towards drains. Makes vinyl plank very, very easy to put into wet areas. Second place here is hybrid, and laminate's going to come a fair way down the track because there are laminates that will allow you to install in a wet area, but the other two will handle it better. So the last category we're going to compare these products in is budget. This will be a little bit longer. So we're not just going to talk about price, but we're also going to talk about value for money and your situation. So let's start with if you're in the home short term. So say you want 5 years out of the floor and you want to move on. Any of them are going to work. It's really going to come down to the look you want. Probably in that case, I would say a hybrid floor would do your job nicely. It's easy to install. You can install it yourself. Probably going to be in that middle category, probably the most price effective option for you. If you're just looking purely at price, I would go with a vinyl plank floor because you can get some really, really cheap vinyl plank floors and they're still going to work okay. They're not going to look great, but they're going to do the job for you and they will last and they'll perform pretty well. If you're looking at long-term value for money, I'd be saying laminate. Laminate will hold up longer and better than any other flooring category. In 20 years' time, you're not going to notice the difference in it the same way you will with a vinyl or a hybrid floor. They'll look flatter. Down the corridors, you're going to see, it's a bit duller. So laminate will stand up there and stand up really, really well. And the last one is if, say, you're putting it into a rental property or something like that, I would probably be looking there at a hybrid floor again because it can be moved in and out quite quickly. And like if you put a vinyl plank floor in, your replacement cost is much higher. Putting a laminate floor in, and if it's not a really good laminate floor, you may have issues with tenants and water. So hybrid will again ride that middle road, which is why I took out the all-rounder category. So in that respect, I would say hybrid. So laminate wins one, vinyl wins the other, and hybrid wins two. So some of the common mistakes we see with flooring. Often people buy a floor because they want a particular kind of floor or they want a particular colour without giving proper consideration to how that flooring will perform in their circumstance. So for example, if you've got, say, a concrete floor that's undulated and you might want a hybrid or a laminate floor, but you don't want to pay for floor preparation, those two floors you should avoid at all cost. They won't survive that. A vinyl plank, while not best practice to put it over top of that, will survive that if you just can't afford the floor preparation. On the other side of that, say you're in a second-storey house or two-storey house and you've got a chipboard floor underneath you. The vinyl isn't going to want to be glued directly to that chipboard. So you'll need to add something like a masonite, which will need to be first stapled into your chipboard, and then you've got to glue your vinyl plank to that. So there you're adding another level of cost where you could just put the hybrid or the laminate floor straight over top of that. Another thing that people often do is when they're building, they will leave their flooring till last, the budget's blown out, and they'll buy a cheap floor expecting a long life out of it, which it's not going to have. So now that we've covered all that, have we helped or have we confused you more? Look, there's hundreds of these pitfalls, but there's also hundreds of different products on our website, so we can always find the right thing for you. So if you're unsure, feel free, pick up the phone, give us a call. I'm happy to have a chat, and we can walk through with you what's going to be the best product for your circumstance.